appreciate it. And let's bring in now former Philadelphia mayor and Bloomberg campaign surrogate, Michael Nutter. Mr. Mayor, I know you've endorsed Michael Bloomberg. I just want you to respond to both Michael and David.
Well, I think the first thing I would say is anyone who either has been or feel that they have been abused by any police officer, hassled, mistreated, as I said, abused, whether in New York or Philadelphia or anywhere else, that is the worst of circumstances. It is a devastating circumstance. It has a mental, personal, spiritual effect on someone, and that is not in any way, shape, or form appropriate policing, and none of us should ever tolerate that. With regard to you made mention of another tape. What I heard was Mike Bloomberg explaining what redlining or predatory lending subprime mortgages were. He has never blamed people who found themselves victims of many of the banks to have anything to do with the crisis. It has been well documented.
Well, he said, let me just read what he said.
Many banks have been charged with violations of
Mr. Mayor, let me read exactly what he said. It all started back when there was a lot of pressure on banks to make loans to everyone. Redlining, if you remember, was the term where banks took whole neighborhoods and said, people in these neighborhoods are poor. They're not going to be able to pay off their mortgages. Tell your salesmen don't go into those areas. And then Congress got involved, local elected officials as well, and said, oh, that's not fair. These people should be able to get credit. Am I misreading that?
No, you're reading whatever it is that you're. I don't know. I haven't seen what you're reading. I think what I heard,
that
what
was
I'm hearing you say
from the audio.
I understand that. What I'm hearing you say is Mike Bloomberg describing what other people have said. The fact of the matter is, and it has been well documented, that any number of banks in the United States of America did pressure people or allow people to sign documents for mortgages that they're clearly financially would not be able to maintain. The economic crisis hits, and then those individuals are victims of the banks for doing things that were inappropriate, and they've been fined for that. On the other hand, Mike Bloomberg created a program in New York City, I know this for a fact, because it was modeled after Philadelphia's, to prevent people from losing their homes through mortgage foreclosure. Mike Bloomberg is the person who helped to build up housing opportunities in New York City. And so I think it is a misreading or a misunderstanding of Mike describing what others have said, but his actions in New York City are the exact opposite. This is a narrative that's going on here that is just inappropriate and wrong.
Mr. Mayor, let me ask you one other question when it comes to stop and frisk. It is a policy that ran through his 3 terms here. There was a lawsuit that
Katy,
deemed the practice.
I don't mean to cut across you. It was a policy and practice in New York City before Mike Bloomberg became mayor of the city of Philadelphia. So I want to be sure that people know that.
It spiked, though. The numbers dramatically rose, when Mayor Bloomberg was the mayor here. And they started to lessen. They started to go down only after a court deemed it was unconstitutional in practice here. And then the mayor appealed it. He never apologized for it, In fact, he defended it for quite a long time. And he only started apologizing for it, and we checked this, in November of 2019, after he declared he was running for president. Does that not sound disingenuous to you?
I know the person, I know his heart, and I know that he was sincere, and he actually did apologize
Why did he apologize? Maybe it was right before he was running for president. I'm sorry if I got that timeline a little off.
Yeah, that's all right.
Why not apologize 2 years ago?
You asked me a question. Let me at least try to answer the question. He apologized when he apologized. The issue is, and if you're going to talk about stop and frisk, then I think it's also fair to and responsible to talk about the fact that there were over 600 homicides a year in New York City when Mike Bloomberg became the mayor of New York. That New York City was already using stop and frisk, which is constitutionally allowed. And yes, the stops did go up, and also crime did go down. When Mike left office, there were 48% fewer homicides in the city of New York, 9,200 fewer homicides during his 12 years in office, but also a 39% reduction in the prison population. So at the same time that crime is going down,
hold on, the vast majority of stop and frisk, but I just want to make it clear, the vast majority of stop and frisk, somewhere around 80-90% of people who were stopped were innocent, and they weren't doing anything. Here's the numbers. 88% were innocent. 88% were innocent. 685,724 were stopped. Are you saying that even though 88% of the people that were stopped were innocent, even though that is what's responsible for homicides going down?
No, what I'm saying to you, Katie, is that's a part of the reason why Mike has apologized. He admits that he did not fully see the damage that was being committed by the aggressive nature of the officers, while at the same time crime was going down in New York City, which was his responsibility. He has made a mistake. The question is, after you realize that you've made a mistake, after you have been out of office, after you've had some time to reflect, what are you trying to do going forward? And that requires also, I say fairly, look at the Greenwood Initiative. Look at what Mike has said with regard to African Americans specifically, about wealth building, about 100,000 new black businesses with employees, about 1 million new black homeowners in the United States of America. These are also plans and proposals, many of which are comparable to what he did when he was mayor of New York, that no one else is talking about. None of us have ever been able to fix the past. What you can do is try to do something for the future. There was a 42% increase in high school graduation during his time. There was a 43% increase in teacher salaries during his time. The Young Men's Initiative that was solely focused on black and Latino men to help them get jobs, to help upgrade their skills, which was the program that President Obama used as a model to create My Brother's Keeper. And so we have to look at the totality of someone's record in evaluating where they are, what they've done. You cannot fix the past, but you can do something about the future. You have to atone for the past, and certainly Mike has tried to do that and will have to continue to do so, but he's also running for president of the United States of America. He's not running for mayor of New York. And lastly, Katie, by the way, for all the talk about stop and frisk in New York City, that is still the pattern and practice of the New York City Police Department. Mike's been out of office for 6 years now.
You're 100%.
That is still the policy and practice of the New York City Police Department.
I'm not saying anyone here is defending that policy or practice.
I'm not here to defend it either. All I'm saying is it's still going on.
Because I've let you go on now for quite some time, and I appreciate your response.
And I appreciate that.
One more question to you. You talk about violent crime, and I think you're attributing the decrease in violent crime to his mayoralty specifically, or maybe this practice. But violent crime has been on the decline for many years. I'm looking at a Pew stat right now. FBI numbers, violent crime has fallen 51% between 1993 and 2018. I mean, it's been on the decline.
But Katie, I mean, I've actually, with every respect to you, I was mayor of Philadelphia for 8 years. I can assure you that if you were reading stats that said that crime went up in New York City, there would be only one person to blame, and that would be the mayor. So you can't have it both ways. He actually took steps and initiatives to lower crime. Stop and frisk was not the only one. Everyone should certainly know that. It goes to the credit of the New York City Police Department. It goes to the credit of getting people jobs. It goes to the credit of all the other fine public servants, whether in New York or in Philadelphia. In my particular case, a 32% reduction in homicides during my 8 years. So, you can't have it both ways.
Well,
if crime went up during that time, let me finish, Katie. If crime went up during that time, I can assure you that you or someone else would be blaming Mike Bloomberg. So if it goes down, you get the credit that goes with it.
Let me ask you this question. What do you say to people like David Arlicht, who was, as he said, thrown against a wall, patted down, had all of his stuff taken out of his pockets when he was innocent, when he didn't do anything wrong, he was just walking down the street? What do you say to people? Hold on, let me ask my question. What do you say to people like him? I'm not finished.
Okay.
What do you say to people like him who see Michael Bloomberg running for president and feel like he has not adequately addressed the practice, has not adequately addressed his feelings. We had that audio come out where he was talking about Xeroxing a description of a black or brown person and distributing that to the cops and saying, this is who you stop, this is who commits crime. What do you say to them when Mayor Michael Bloomberg is now running for president, to be president of everybody in this country, and maybe they feel like his apology right before he announced wasn't actually sincere? He's not sat down for a lot of interviews on this subject on national broadcasts. I welcome him to do it here. I hope he does.
Okay.
What do you say to them?
Okay, so you asked me about 4 questions, and I'm going to try to get through them all.
That's one question.
The first, 2, 3, 4. I mean, there was a lot packed in there. I'm going to try to address them all. First and foremost, to David, you know, I've been stopped by the police before and not even had his level of experience. It is a horrifying experience. I mean, I would apologize to him for how that occurred and how he felt. And, you know, I am hopeful, certainly as we move forward, that Mike will have more opportunities, whether on your show or someone else's show, to more personally address that particular situation. But I certainly understand how David feels, and I certainly feel bad about that. When people see someone else now going for a higher office, I mean, again, Mike Bloomberg cannot do anything about in 2020, the things that happened between 2002 and January of 2014. You cannot change the past, but you can try to make amends. You can try to do things for the future. And yes, he is running for a different office, and the power and the responsibility and the authority to even use more of the federal government's resources to address many of the issues that you're talking about. And so the question is, how do you move forward? I think that he was sincere. I respect and appreciate if other people don't think so, and that will be a difference of opinion. You can always make a more sincere apology. You can always make for other efforts to atone for your actions. But you can only do that if you're allowed to try to move forward and talk about the things that you want to do, the lessons that you've learned. And I think Mike has learned a lot through this process, had some time for reflection. And lastly, I guess I would say, and maybe, again, because he's not a talker and rather is a doer and doesn't brag about the kinds of things that he's done since he's been out of office, whether it's the great efforts on his own philanthropy or from Bloomberg Philanthropies, he has put people to work in his company. I was just at a meeting where folks were talking about teenagers, 15, 16, 17, who are now Bloomberg terminal technicians. They will get jobs. They will be able to move on with their lives. He hasn't really talked about those kinds of things either. And so all is not for naught here. It's not everything is bad and nothing else has happened. You're talking about one of the most successful business people in the world. I think people are questioning,
they're questioning a record that he had when he was mayor. They're questioning a portion of his record that he had.
Let's look at the whole record, Katie.
No. We as journalists are allowed to question whatever portions of the record we want.
But you're going to do your thing.
To try and bring light to what was going on and where that person stands now, especially if they're running for president of the United States. It's what we do to Donald Trump every single day, and it's what we're going to do to every single one of the candidates in the race. This is a record.
I have no problem with that.
This is a record that stopped, as we just said, over 600,000 people. 88,000 of those were innocent. It is one that there are folks out there who believe he should answer questions about directly to a journalist or directly to those who were affected, not just on a stage and with a podium, but actually have to answer questions on it. And then he can bring up every other thing that he believes he's accomplished, and whether or not he feels that mitigates that, and whether or not people out there feel that mitigates that. That's for them to decide. We're the ones here asking questions. Former Philadelphia mayor.
All I would ask you to do is do a fair examination of the whole record. Don't cherry pick.
Former Philadelphia Mayor Michael Nutter. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, Katie.
Still ahead, after 50 years of hurdles, we may finally be about to get a brand new...